Hello and welcome to the Burn KC ScorchCast. I am your host, Alex Blackburn, here to bring you the biggest Kansas City sports news this week. This show, we'll be going over some big-time transfer news for both Kansas and Kansas State football, some soccer news, got some current news, no pun intended, as well as some Sporting KC news. Some Royals news that also involves a certain border war and burning question. Also involves the Chiefs, so you can probably infer if you've been keeping up with the news what that is exactly. And a few other minor things to wrap up. So just kind of a shorter show, but it's got a lot of meat to it. So in terms of topics, it's shorter, but there's a lot of meat to these topics, so it may not be a shorter show. I may also have some format news as well to share, so stay tuned. It should be a good one. So strap in, sit tight, and enjoy the show. Let's start off with some college football news with a recruiting update. The portal is starting to slow down a little bit for both football and basketball. However, both Kansas schools are still making moves, not just in recruiting high school kids, but recruiting in the portal as well. Starting with Kansas State, the Wildcats have acquired two key pieces in the transfer portal to bolster their secondary and offensive line. May 31st, the Cats welcomed Rice transfer cornerback Jordan Dunbar to their ranks. The 6'1", three-star corner recorded 25 total tackles and 8 pass deflections in 2022, however, was injured in the 2023 season. If he stays healthy, he'll provide some depth and talent to a fairly thin secondary for Kansas State. He's definitely got the talent to play at the Power 4 level, but obviously, there's injury concerns there. We'll just have to see what happens. Obviously, Chris Kleiman is a great football coach, and I think he can get Dunbar right so long as he stays healthy. Also joining the Wildcats is former guard center Colin Truitt, who was a solid piece for the Mocs offensive line for 4 years and will be joining the Wildcats for his final year of eligibility. This helps further bolster a line that lost a ton of pieces last year. Obviously, Cooper Beebe being the big one, but they lost a couple more pieces as well to both the draft and the portal. So some big moves coming in the transfer portal for the Wildcats. In high school recruiting, Kansas State snagged a commitment from Derby High School corner Martell Jackson. The 2025 three-star is described by 247 Sports recruiting analyst Gabe Brooks as a lean, wiry athlete with verified speed markers on the track. He plays in phase downfield. He plays in phase downfield to allow him to stay sticky. He's a willing tackler who will participate in the perimeter run game when needed. So Kansas State got a solid in-state recruit. When do they not? That should at least be a special teamer as a true freshman. So that's another big thing. Excellent pickup for the Cats. I think he will provide their secondary with another big piece, and hopefully re-upping and reloading for the 2025 season, because right now Kansas State secondary is not looking super thick, not looking super deep. And in the Big 12, that could be a big problem. So we'll see if that comes back to bite them. Obviously, the Dunbar commit is big, but is it enough? I wouldn't think so. The Wildcats weren't the only school busy in the portal, though, or in high school recruiting for that matter. Kansas has also been hard at work. In the portal, Kansas is working hard to land Texas A&M transfer interior lineman Bryce Foster. As of recording this, he has not committed yet, but I am hearing that his commitment is pretty close, and it looks like he's going with the Jayhawks. Just by the signs that I'm seeing, by the hearings that I'm getting. Shout out to Huggy Thoughts on Twitter as well as all the KU burners. They seem to be more ear to the ground than I am right now. Obviously, I do this as kind of a passion project. This isn't necessarily my day job, but I do have an ear close to KU football, and that's also what I'm hearing as well. But they're on it. Let's just say that. Um, the commit could happen within the next hour. It could happen within the next day. I'm not sure yet. That would be Foster would be Kansas's highest rated transfer ever, and he's an SEC starter that would be just a huge addition to a Jayhawk offensive line that does lack some depth, that does lack some experience, starting experience for that matter, um, and does lack size too. I mean, right now the starting center Shane Bumgarner, he was a D2. He was an excellent D2 center, but that's just it, Division Two. Um, and I don't think Shane Bumgartner will necessarily, not get minutes because of his size, but Bryce Foster being there would provide some major, major, major insurance for Jalen Daniels in that run game. So uh, Foster's not the only one that is being targeted by the Jayhawks in the transfer portal. They also landed transfer wide receiver from Syracuse, Bryce Cahoon, who is a Blue Valley product originally. Cahoon is a three-star commit that will boost the depth of an already heavily talented wide receiver group. So it'll be interesting to see where he fits in. He's kind of a slot type receiver. So that's probably where he's going to end up with Lawrence Arnold, Quentin Skinner, and Luke Grimm obviously being the top three of that group. He could very easily be a good wide receiver four, so be on the lookout for him. In high school recruiting, the Hawks have been very successful as well, landing another great recruit to bolster an already strong 2025 recruiting class. Four-star offensive tackle Julian Juju Marks will be joining the Jayhawks after he committed yesterday and shut down his recruitment officially today. A 6'8", lengthy two-sport star from Overland Park, Kansas. He just transferred to Olathe South. He originally played at St. Thomas Aquinas. Shout out to two schools that are very close to me. He's a talented local product who will immediately provide talent and depth to a major position of need for Kansas, especially next year. They got a lot of players leaving in the offensive line, and there's going to be a lot of youth along that O line next year. So he'll provide depth, but he'll provide talent as well. He's a great player with a lot of athleticism. I've watched his tape. I wrote an article about him over at College Football Dogs, so go check that out. There's one other storyline brewing, though, out of Kansas high school football recruiting, and that's the battle for Goodland, Kansas tight end Lincoln Cure. Now, I know what you're thinking, unless you already know the situation. There's a recruiting battle going on for a kid out of Goodland, Kansas. Population just about 4,400, way out before the Colorado border, and it's way West Kansas. It's the only reason this is like the most populated town for miles and miles is because it's right off of I-70. I've been to Goodland before. It is a small town. It's Western Kansas. However, yes, Goodland, Kansas. And you'll be surprised to know, again, if you don't already know the situation, that Mr. Cure is not a 3, not a 4, but a 5-star tight end. He's the best player in the state currently and is one of the best tight ends in the class, if not the best. I think he's like one or two in the 2025 recruiting class, and he's being heavily recruited by the likes of Oregon, Texas A&M, and of course, the two Kansas schools, Kansas and Kansas State. Cure's brother Leighton committed to play for Kansas this past month, which could provide a leg up for the Jayhawks in recruiting Lincoln. Lincoln has already taken his official visit to Lawrence and has Kansas State scheduled for later this month. His last official visit scheduled, he's going to visit Oregon and Texas A&M before that. There is not a set commitment date as of yet, but most signs point towards Lincoln choosing either Kansas or Kansas State. It seems like he wants to stay home, and just based on how those Oregon A&M visits go, that's probably where it's going to head. This would be the biggest get for either Kansas school in the internet recruiting period in terms of high school recruiting. So you could see why the hype is surrounding him. In-state five stars in Kansas do not come around all that often. So this would be a huge, huge, huge pickup for either school. So that's why both schools are in hot pursuit. It should be a photo finish for a highly coveted tight end. But let's go ahead and talk the other type of football next, shall we? Let's talk soccer. All right, got some soccer news for you. In soccer news, the KC Current are back in first place after a huge win of 5-2 propels them over the Orlando Pride, who I believe tied, which is why, or they may have lost. I'm not sure. I didn't get a chance to check. However, the Current are back in first. Current played at home this past weekend where they faced Seattle Reign FC in their teal out game. The Current would not be denied a W here as they came out firing offensively. Lauren Leal scored her first goal for the club, making 16 different goal scorers for the club so far this season. Two goals were scored within the first 89 seconds of the second half, and the women pulled away in a dominant victory, 5-2 over the Seattle Reign. Props to the KC Current and to everyone surrounding that squad. I mean, it is quickly becoming another dominant team for Kansas City. And just another championship team, hopefully. It looks like they're making a great run for it. I mean, they stand alone at the top of the NWSL table and look to continue their historic unbeaten streak when they play the Chicago Red Stars Friday, June 14th at home, a game that is sure to sell heavily as, to be frank, this team is red hot and deserves the viewership. Just an utterly dominant season so far from the women. It's going to be really interesting to see how long they can keep that unbeaten streak up. I mean, they're in top form. So, you keep hoping, you keep hoping. Going to a not so dominant team, however, the U.S. men's national team lost to Colombia 5-1. Not ideal, but right, yeah. Uh, just wanted to mention that because goodness gracious, that is a horrible loss for the U.S. men's national team. That's a huge step back. You hope they can rebound, but obviously they're national. Let's talk about a local team who has also been suffering greatly. Sporting Kansas City. Sporting Kansas City, though, snapped their losing streak. Finally, Sporting beat Seattle 2-1 after an 85th minute goal from Elenis Vargas sealed it. The losing streak stalls at 7. Defense is looking better. Sporting finally put shots on goal and finally capitalized on set pieces. I know it is 2-1, so it's kind of a I mean, in soccer, that's not necessarily a pitcher's duel, but kind of a low scoring matchup. Uh, does this save for me, Peter Vermees? Does this save Peter Vermees' job? That remains to be seen. I know that there's still heavy talks of him potentially getting fired should Sporting continue to be terrible and continue to sit at the bottom of the Western Conference. This is a big win. This is a win to get back on track, but you need to keep on winning. It's what you did last year. That's what you need to do this year. You need to just keep those streaks alive and just keep pounding. Keep in form, please, because it would be great to have two soccer teams in the soccer capital of the United States that are killing the game. Uh, yeah. Now onto the Royals, though. Quick little soccer ditty there. We have a certain question we have to talk about, a so-called burning question, if you will, regarding the Royals. So stay tuned here. We'll get to that. All right, let's get into some Royals news, shall we? The Royals. We'll get to the burning question here in a second. Sorry to kind of leave you on a cliffhanger there if you're watching the whole thing all at once. But the Royals split their series with the division leader Cleveland Guardians 1-1, with the second game of the series being postponed until August due to weather. A solid series, not great. This put the Royals within striking distance of the division lead. However, with a huge couple of homestands coming up, the Royals need wins and need them badly against two very, very good teams in the Seattle Mariners and the New York Yankees. So far, they've mostly delivered. It only, it started with a massive comeback win versus the Mariners, where the Royals dug an 8-0 hole only to come back and win it in extras 10-9. That is the ninth time in baseball history that that's ever happened, that a team has come back from 8-0 and the first time that that's ever happened in Royals history. So historic comeback by the Royals, winning it in extras 10-9. Royals Devil Magic is back. That's basically what it comes down to. Then though, the Royals would win a bit more comfortably, 8-4, winning the series. While they may have dropped the series finale in extras, they still played very good ball in that one as well, with Hunter Renfroe coming onto the scene as another Royals batter that can get on base and get hits. He looked really good in that last game. Unfortunate that they couldn't sweep, but it shows that the Royals can win against good teams. The Royals start their series off against the MLB leading New York Yankees tonight. And it's like right about to start as I'm recording this. I think it starts at 7. They will need to perform all but perfect to secure that series win and officially, I would say, get the can't win against good teams moniker off their back. The Mariners series was a nice start, but now you face the big boys. It's time to put up or shut up. It's going to be a huge series for Bobby Witt Jr., for Salvador Perez, and for MJ Melendez, for the rest of them. I mean, just it's going to be gigantic if the Royals can get a series win over the MLB leading Yankees. And with Aaron Judge out, because Aaron Judge is out for this game, the time is right. You have to strike. When their best player is out, you have to strike. But tough homestands and winning games aren't the only thing the Royals are making headlines for. Royals ownership has expressed interest in moving to Kansas once the lease is up at Kauffman Stadium, a move that very much mirrors the Chiefs' potential move as well that was discussed in this past week's Burning Question article. The use of star bonds, moving the team to somewhere in Johnson or Wyandotte County, and just a mutual interest between state legislation and the franchises. I ask you, though, the residents mostly, of Missouri and Kansas. Those that are fans of my show, what your thoughts are on the matter. And it went a little something like this. So, as you can see, very hotly debated topic, um, with a lot of division regarding this matter, specifically downstate lines. If you could see the votes, or who voted rather, um, you'd know that it was very much downstate lines. I mean, it was crazy. The border war seemingly has another chapter, and this war being a dispute over the two storied area franchises. Let's look at some of the comments we have here from my buddy Joe. If it is the right move that protects public funds the most, then both should do it. And that I kind of mentioned it in my Instagram comment there. This brings up another question. Should stadiums in general be funded private? In a perfect world, yeah. Yeah. If you're an owner of a team, then you should pay for the team stuff. You shouldn't ask for public funds and you shouldn't ask for handouts, frankly. And you know, everyone's going to say that because no one likes paying extra taxes, especially when it goes just into a billionaire's pockets. I mean, it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense in a perfect world. However, we live in a world where billionaires are able to do that, and we just kind of have to sit back and take it. Um, obviously, we can vote all we want, but in the end, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And it's unfortunate, because I don't want to see us lose the Chiefs or the Royals, but I'm not so sure that John Sherman and Clark Hunt, more John Sherman than Clark Hunt. I think Clark Hunt kind of has a reputation to fulfill, being that his father Lamar had incredible love for this city and wanted the franchise here. But I mean that remains to be seen. It does. And with John Sherman, with his wife's now deleted Facebook comments, it's kind of tough to say. But yeah, I agree. If it is the right move that protects public funds the most, then I think it's the right move. We also have one from Sarah Ben Ezra. KCK is growing, and if they can use some private funds, not all, then they should both move out of KC, Missouri. KCK and Johnson County are both growing. Do they want franchises to be a part of that growth, though, especially if it means more taxes? Is what I said to rebuke the question or the statement, rather. I think you meant private. Did you mean private? Private funds are like private sector funds, not government funds. So I'm not sure. I think that's what she meant because, like, if they can use some private funds, not all, I don't know why you would avoid not using all, but I mean, yeah. Also, speaking of burning question stuff, I actually got a memory from a burning question that I did 2 years ago. Who will KU's big men be next year? Clements, Adams, Uday, other, and it said this person said Clements. Um, we'll see how that works out. He's currently like the third stringer. But, anyways, I digress. Obviously, you saw what the vote looked like, and this won't become a bigger issue until 2030, really, or when it gets closer to 2030, because that's when the lease is up. However, hot debates will surely rear their heads throughout that time, especially once the World Cup, set to be held at Arrowhead in 2026, has come and gone. But let's wrap up though. We got a couple more minor pieces to go through, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. Okay. Like I said, shorter show with the topics, a lot of meat. So hopefully you've enjoyed so far. All right, let's go ahead and finish this off, shall we? In Blues news, the Blues won their first Sevens championship of the summer this past weekend, winning Northland Sevens. Big days from Eli Brizendine, Aaron Martin, Kyle Renner, Mark Barber, and others spurred the big time effort, and all three teams sent to this tournament brought home hardware. The qualifier team will be traveling to St. Louis for a national qualifier, while the second and social sides will be traveling to Springfield for their next tournaments. In college basketball news, Kansas State required a huge transfer get in Kentucky center Ugana Onyeso, or excuse me, Onyenso. My apologies if I butchered that pronunciation. He's a 7-footer that will provide size and talent for a Wildcat team chomping at the bit to replace key players. Kansas also made news by releasing their details regarding the Allen Fieldhouse renovations being done. You can find more on those via Mike Vernon in the hearings newsletter. Big things happening over in the Cathedral of College Basketball. That's our show, though. Thank you so much for joining me here. I've been thinking, though, this is going back to the format change. I've been thinking about what I want to do with the Burn KC writings, considering I'm pretty swamped with the college football dogs writings. I may put out some feelers about potentially changing the Burn to podcast only, but I want to get your opinions on it before pulling the trigger on that. So stay tuned for a community poll and other items pertaining to the potential format change. I know that I haven't really been writing for the Burn as of late, so I sincerely apologize if that's the part that you really love and care about. I really do apologize. I hope you enjoy the College Football Dogs writings. I'm wanting to continue the writings, but I'm just not sure how feasible that is to this point. I want to get your guys' opinion on it first and foremost before I do anything at all. But just wanted to be transparent and kind of give you guys a look into the behind the scenes stuff. But that's our show. Have a great night. And as always, hashtag burn it down. I have been your host, Alex Blackburn of the Burn KC, signing off.